How have you been keeping yourself sane?
Well, I think it's been a wonderful lesson in gratitude, really. You have to. Well, my thing, I've been saying, I have nothing to complain about, but I'll give it my best shot. Like I'm so aware that I just have nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
We had someone who works on our show whose husband passed away
Mm.
very suddenly, very tragically to COVID. A very dear friend of mine was on a ventilator in Los
Mm.
Angeles for 3 weeks and has
Jeez.
made a full recovery, thank God. So there's been those moments of just of really going. I'm so aware that I just have nothing to complain about, and then I'm very fortunate, and children are a wonderful distraction in all
Mm.
of it. Much as you can see that they're struggling in it.
Right.
I think if there was a positive to take from it, and I know that you'll associate with this, is that I think that I know that I've always been that person someone would call, how you doing? Good, great. How are you? Terrific, excellent. And if there's one positive that I hope will remain the other side of this, it's the feeling of speaking to a friend, or not even a friend, someone you might not even know that well, and saying, how are you doing? And someone going, do you know what? Not great.
Yeah.
I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And that openness is so wonderful. It's such a positive thing, to the acknowledgement of things not being okay and the acceptance of they don't have to be. And the
Mm.
best thing you can do is share that with somebody else
Yeah,
and go, I'm really struggling.
I have friends who have never shown any sign. It's one of those where like I look at a friend, I'm like, you have the perfect life. You're never complaining. Everything's great. And for the first time, I'm hearing them saying, you know what? I'm not okay right now.
Yeah.
Today was a hard day.
Yeah. And the spikes in anxiety of it and things like that, I think, like I say, I do hope that that's something that remains. It's like I've talked to my neighbors on our street more than in the last 5 months, more than I spoke to them in the 2 years previous to that.
Right.
And so I do think there are pockets of light that you can cling to that remind you of the humanity in all of us, really.
And then on the other side of it, you get to celebrate having Emmy nominations. How's that for a transition?
Yeah.
I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people now who've been nominated, and is it a weird feeling that you still want to celebrate, you still want to be happy about this, but it's happening in this crazy world where I'm sure you feel this, you have to have a balance where you're not making too much of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've never really done that anyway. We've had some of the best nights of our careers in those Emmy rooms,
Yeah.
like we pinch ourselves, Ben and Rob and I, who make our show, with how we've been recognized by that academy is in fact, I don't even know if I can sort of really contemplate, any of it really. I just think it's important in any of these times, regardless of coronavirus or any of those things, it's important to Google Earth yourself. And I mean, and I'm not just saying this now, like back in 2012, when I was fortunate enough to win that Tony Award, the first thing I wanted to say and knew that in fact, the only thing I knew I'd say if I won, which I didn't think I would, is it's important to understand that there is no such thing as best in any of this. There can't be. It doesn't exist. You can be the fastest runner over 100 meters. You cannot be the best actor or the best show but you can't be. It's impossible. It's only opinion. So it's important to Google Earth yourself and think, well, this is very nice. And that's not to downplay it. I think all those things are very, very nice. I think they're wonderful. And look, I was so thrilled on a personal level, really, that the Tony Awards got nominated, because like I really, that was a good sort of, that was a good 5 months of my life trying to make that the best show it could be, such is the sort of privilege I consider it to be, to host such a thing, you know? So it's lovely to be recognized. It's wonderful. But at the same time, I don't think anybody wants to go to anybody's Emmy nominee party, because I just think, particularly not now.
I mean, the tone, listen, I'll tell you this, and I'm not, you know, I'm always going to be honest with you. I still watch the clips that I shot of you doing the karaoke or the, you know, the sing along. I mean, I watched the Billy Porter one over and over just to make me smile, and it never gets old.
Well, that's really kind, because I think all we ever wanted to do was, like, it's funny now, retrospectively, given where theatre is at the moment, that like when I sat down with David Javerbaum and Tom Kitt, who wrote the opening number, when we worked on that, all I kept saying was, let's write a love letter to the theatre about why is it that's great? Why is it so great? And it's great because it's live. And why is it great? Because it's live, because it makes you feel alive. You understand that you're alive. You understand that this is happening now, and only now, in this minute right here. And I like that opening number, from starting on the sofa to the curtain raising and seeing Radio City behind, and ending with, I think it was like 200 dancers on stage. Yeah. Like, those are the award shows that I think, and what do I know? But I think that's what award shows should be. I think award shows shouldn't be just a procession of millionaires giving each other gold statues. And, you know, I think they should have greater production. I think they should start with it. I think they should be an absolute celebration of the very thing you're celebrating. And so, but then you can't get too caught up in just making an opening number. You've got to play, because there's still 3 hours after that to go, you know? So then things like, you know, singing with people in the audience, Audra McDonald and Laura Linney having a fight on the front row, or doing a piece about in the restroom with Sarah Bareilles, Josh Groban and Neil Patrick Harris. Like, there just wasn't a second of the show that I thought, if we're on, because obviously many award shows, you know, there'll be a patch of 20 minutes where the host isn't there, or please welcome, you know,
right,
that sort of voice of God thing. But I was like, it just was a feeling of going, when we're on, let's make sure something is happening, because I think that room in New York, I think that room at the Tony Awards are, per square meter, the most talented group of individuals on planet Earth. I really, really do.
You don't have to convince me that.
I really, really do. And I think that they have to have one night on television that celebrates them, who they are, and what they do 8 times a week is incredibly important, and more so now than ever, you know?
I mean, one of the things I was thinking, you know, you have your nominations for Carpool Karaoke and the Tonys. 2 things we can't have right now.
Yeah, that's all right.
Sucks. No.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, look, the theatre is like, look, Carpool, I think, you know, I love that segment. I'm incredibly proud of everything it's done for our show. But you know, it would just feel odd, I think, to do it now in a way. It's so got such joyful abandon. It's so sort of, you know, that it would feel strange in a way to do it right now, and the level of safety precautions we have to take every day and things like that. I have real, like, and when I say this, I mean it. It's genuinely keeping me up at night. I worry about the theatre. I worry
Mm.
about the bounce back that I hope it can have, and when that can happen, and how it can happen, and if it can happen, and all those things. And it does play on my mind greatly,
Yeah,
because that's why my entire career started, doing musicals in the West End or plays at the National Theatre, that I was very fortunate that they would come to New York and stuff.
one of the things that I've spoken to a couple of friends of mine, more in the dance community, and they're talking about, like, how these small dancing schools, like local dancing schools, are having a hard time staying open, obviously, during this. And I keep thinking about the talent, the generation
Yeah.
of talent that we may never get to see because that one kid couldn't go to dancing school, and it sort of just tripped up their whole trajectory. And that to me is such a tragedy.
Well, and I think it's worth noting the incredible talent that is born in those environments and rooms, that go on to work in theatre, that then go on to provide unbelievable entertainment
Right.
in movie theaters and streamers and all those things. I do think it would be great if the companies that are, in one respect, benefiting from COVID, if you look at price shares,
Mm-hmm.
streamers and all those things, I think some acknowledgement of the volume of art and artists that have come from that environment. And I think it would be really in their best interests to try and support the theatre in that way, for Amazons and Apples. And I know that Ted at Netflix did a wonderful thing with Sam Mendes, because Sam Mendes is the prime example, actually. Look
Right.
at Sam, won the Tony Award last year for Best Director, nominated for Best Director and Best Picture at the Oscars in the same 12 months. Like, there is a line that comes from that world of starting your career in a live theatre, and I do think it's important to acknowledge that.
Have you reached out to the Netflixes and those companies that are doing well to sort of exactly what you're saying now? Say, help
Well,
us
I had a
out.
long chat. I had a long chat with Sam about it, and I
Mm.
think people are much more likely to listen to him than me. So I just sit in his corner, championing his phrase. And should I ever be needed, I would run into those buildings and do
By the
such a thing
way,
without
don't be
question.
don't be so modest. You won a Tony. You've hosted the Tonys. You have a
Well,
voice here.
well, I genuinely, because I don't know, I don't quite know where. Because there was a huge worry at home, and then there was a which wasn't enough, but it was something, a sort of a government uh, bailout in a way,
Right.
to support artists and buildings and theatres and all those things. Does that money trickle down to the freelancers? Does that money trickle down to the freelance
The gig
trombone player
workers.
that
Yeah.
plays on Wicked? And so that's the worry. That's where the worry is. And there has look. I have been part of lots of discussions about how to help that. I don't know what's happening in America with regards to that. I don't know. I know that it's a much more sort of commercial space in a way. Like,
Right.
if you look at the National Theatre, it starts with I think I could be getting this wrong, a £10 million grant from the
Right.
government to, subsidies and things like that. So, but it would be great if there was some acknowledgement from the government, because you're talking about a massive industry. You're talking about an
Jeez.
industry that provides huge jobs and revenue.
That holds New York
That's
City together. I mean, without, I
in
don't know
certainly
what
a
happens
good
to the
few blocks of
city.
it, for sure. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I do think it would be wonderful to see some acknowledgement of that. Yeah.
So you went back to set.
Yeah.
How odd, surreal is it to be on set? Obviously, minimal people there, socially distanced. And then again, this sort of goes back to the question I had before. Is like, how do you balance doing the show but being respectful of what's going on in the world?
Well, we went back to the studio because we realized, I think we had a real understanding that this wasn't going to vanish, however much the president of the United States says this is just going to, it'll get hot and disappear. It's never been hotter in California, and it's never been more present. So, you know, and we thought, well, we should try and make a way. And we knew that we couldn't go back to the studio in its regular sense, of course. Right. So we rebuilt a set, and we worked with many different safety advisors on how to do it. The majority of our staff isn't there, you know. The majority of our whole team that make the show are still working remotely on Zoom. Our show has always been closer to a variety show than it has been a talk show. And that's been very much on purpose. That's like, look, we never, ever, ever we would shy away from talking about anything, ever. And I think there's been great evidence of that in our show. But at the same time, we believe that our job is to be a source of light and joy in the comfort of your room before, or let's be honest, most likely whilst you fall asleep. And that is what we have always wanted to do, mainly because we follow Stephen's show. So I don't think, I don't think anywhere else in television would anyone go, from 8 till 9, we're going to have a medical drama. And from 9 till 10, we're going to have another medical drama with the same diseases. You just wouldn't. So we always want to be a source of irreverence, joy. That's always been our show. And look, that's been harder because we've never been a show that sat and talked for 20 minutes.
Right.
We believe television is a hugely visual medium. We believe and it should have scale and light and joy. So those things, of course, have been harder. Doing Crosswalk the musicals, or big roll call song and dances in our studio, or Carpool Karaoke's, or any of the games that we play with our audience and things. So it has been a challenge because there's been lots of our show that it's just been taken away. But then it's given us a new way of thinking, a new way of talking about stuff. And I'm very proud of the show we're doing right now. I think it looks beautiful.
It looks great.
And I think we're still trying to be that piece of uplifting momentum, I guess. It's just to go in a world, to keep momentum going from what our show has always been, running through to what we hope it can return to at some point.
Now, do you have a dream guest for the return of Carpool Karaoke?
I haven't even thought about it. I really haven't. I genuinely, no, I haven't. It's been so far from anything I've thought about. Right. I like it. It just hasn't crossed any of our minds, really. We've been so busy trying to think about how we do the show whilst keeping everybody safe. Right. That is the main priority. Keep as many people employed as you can and keep them as safe as you can. And that is really and if we can do both of those things, that's enough.
The prom was shooting. Did you have to shoot during this? I spoke to Kerry Washington actually the other day, and she had told me she was going to go back, but it was only going to be like a half day, and they don't want to risk it because she lives with her parents live with her, and she had some childhood asthma. Did you have to go back and shoot?
No, I had shot all of my stuff. There was a couple of moments which I think then Ryan decided that he didn't need once he'd seen a pass of it, so no, I mean, it feels such a long time ago now. It was without question the most joyful time in my working life doing that.
Why?
Film.
Why was that?
It was just joyful the whole time. Like any day you get to go to work with Meryl Streep is the best day of your life. That's just a fact. Like nothing would give me more pleasure than to tell you that she's awful. Um, you know, because like she needs any more praise. But it's just incredible. You can't help but it's intoxicating being in her company because she is a constant reminder of what's important in life, and particularly as a performer, that you should take what you're doing incredibly seriously, and you should never take yourself seriously for a second. So myself and Meryl, and I've been lucky, I worked with Meryl in 2012 when we, or 2013 when we made Into the Woods.
Yep.
And it was incredible. And then to get to do it again with Ryan, who I really have really fallen in love with, to the point where I would kind of run through fire on broken glass to work with him again.
Wow.
And then you throw in Andrew Rannells and Nicole Kidman, and you've got a gang, and you're going to work every day with a group of people who want to make something really good. I think we've made a good film. The general consensus seems to be that it's a good film, and what I love is it's about something.
It's a film. It seems like a film we need now too.
I hope so. It's a big film that's funny and fun and joyous, but it's about something, and that I love. But the experience of making it, if I could live one day again, if I could go back and live one day again, it would have been. I could have picked any of 25 days from that shoot, because I've felt so happy in the environment of being amongst people I have so much respect and admiration for,
And then one last quick question, then I'll let you go. Tell me about the first audition you ever went on.
Oh, man. Well, I used to go on auditions basically every week from when I was about 13 to 16, 17. And I never got a single job. From 11 to 16, I would always, not always, but mostly I would get to the last 2 or 3. And I don't know if this is the first audition I went on, but I this is one that sticks in my mind. And it sticks in my mind because I had forgotten all about it, but my dad reminded me of it. Because on the M40 motorway, on the freeway coming out of London towards sort of Oxfordshire, which was, our house was that way, there's an old kind of Airstream diner next to a gas station. And I was driving up there. This is fairly recently, maybe 5-6 years ago. No more, maybe 8 years ago. Driving up the M40 with my dad, and my dad pointed at this diner and said, do you know what I think of every time I see this diner? And he told me this story that I was going for an audition for The Sound of Music at Sadler's Wells Theatre. And I'd already auditioned once, and this was a callback, and we knew that what they were looking for were 2 kids for every 1 role, so that you could alternate shows. I think I was 13 at the time. And it was one of them where there's like 25 kids for every part at the start of the day. And throughout the day, people just get cut and thank you so much, you can go now. And it got to like 5 p.m. So I'd been there all day. It was 5 p.m. on a Saturday, and there was 3 people for every part. And the director said, if I call your name, step forward. And you don't know what step forward means at that point.
It's like RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah. So he calls my name, step forward, and says, thank you so much. Thanks for coming today. You can go home. And I remember leaving the room, and I was picking up my backpack, and I was putting my drink and putting my script in there. And I heard these like 20 kids or 18 kids and all the director and musical director all just going, yeah! And they were going, we're going to have I remember the director going, we're going to have the greatest time. Rehearsal started 3 weeks. Oh my God, like that. And my dad said that I walked down the stairs. He was at the bottom of the stairs with the other mums and dads. And he said, I was walking down. And he said he'd never seen me look so down or upset. And we got in the car and we're driving out of London and he's trying to make conversation. And he said, I just wasn't engaging with him at all. Just yes and no answers and things like that. And then we're driving on the M40 out of London. And my dad told me, and I don't remember this at all. My dad told me that he said, you don't have to do this. You can just go to the classes after school and you can go to the classes after school and you can have a nice time. You don't have to, you can just enjoy this. You don't have to put yourself through all this. And I said, I can't, Dad. This is what it is. And this is what I've got to do. And this is just part of it. And he says he knew then that nothing was going to dissuade me from trying to be a performer. He said he just knew it. And then it was just like, well, we just got to try and support him as best we can. But he was like, he knew that there was never going to be if this doesn't work, I'll fall back on this. It was like, well, if I don't give up, I can't fail.
And look at where you are now. It's pretty amazing. Wow, that's really great.
Well, but also that's what comes from, supportive parents.
Yeah, I tried to do it when I was a kid. I went to dancing school. I did the whole thing, and my parents didn't know what to do with it. I got into a theater company, and they're like, "But how do we get you there after school?" It just wasn't their way of thinking.
I had no idea. I had no idea of the financial implications that I was putting on my parents by going to these after-school things or going into London to audition for something. Because even if you're going in on the train, or there's gas if you go in the car. Train tickets £10. You buy something to eat at the train station, that's another £10. I had just absolutely no idea. And the reason I didn't have any idea is my parents never ever used it against me. They never ever did that thing of going, I drove you last week to London. They were like, we chose to do it. We chose to take him. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm very grateful in truth of those early rejections now because they really shape you.
Yeah.
Because the only difference between a professional and an amateur is rejection, I think. Because yes, you have better costumes, and yes, there might be a better band playing with you. Yes, the lighting's better, the sets are better. Very often the text that you're reading is the same. If you're doing Little Shop of Horrors in Indiana's Community Hall, or you're doing Little Shop of Horrors on Broadway, the text and the music is the same. The only difference is if you can get used to rejection of hearing you're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, your ears are too big. Someone else was better than you. And if you can get used to hearing that and you can deal with it and you can build a thick enough skin, then I came out of school. I never thought anyone really ever got these jobs. I thought auditioning was what it was,
And that was James Corden's TED Talk. That was awesome. Thank you, sir.
You.
It's great.
Thank you, Mark.
It's great seeing
So
you.
nice
Great
to see
chatting with you.
I'll
Stay
see you soon,
well. I hope so.
See you.
Bye, dear.
Mwah.
Bye.